Welcome back. More soldiers tender resignation over alleged corruption. Low morale as Nigeria Army increases feeding allowance from 1,000 naira to 1,200 naira for personnel. Alright, my fellow country people, according to Mr. President, of course, when he was about to contest as the president of Nigeria, I'm talking about Tinubu, he said, recruit more Nigerians into army, 50,000 Nigerians into, what would they eat? Ewa, cassava, agbado. Alright, my fellow country people, the Nigerian army has announced the upward review of ration cash allowance for its personnel. The RCA takes care of the feeding of the Nigerian military personnel in lieu of central feeding. Onto this, where the central feeding agreement is available, the affected personnel are fed centrally. RCA is applicable under the following conditions. 1. Military personnel on residential courses or military institutions outside their normal place of abode. Military personnel on 24 hours guard. Military personnel on hospital admission in military hospitals. Military personnel on approved military exercises and operations. Military personnel on escort or temporary duty lasting 24 hours or more outside their duty station. In the signal exclusively obtained by Sahara reporters, the army said the move was sequel to the recent removal of fuel subsidy from the Nigerian government, which had caused increment in prices of goods and services across the country, Nigeria. The signal was dated July 28 and signed by E.E. Emeka, a Major General, on behalf of the Chief of Army Staff. Sequel to the recent removal of fuel subsidy by the federal government of Nigeria, with its attendant rise in the price of goods and services across the country, the CAS has graciously approved upward review of ration cash allowance for troops from 1,000 naira to 1,200 naira with effect from August 2023. As already reading bit, relatedly, question or requisition for petroleum, oil and lubricants are to be subsequently calculated of 30 liters of fuel pump price day and 50 liters of Argo vehicle day. Alright, it has been that time to respectively add that you forwarded your sustenance requirement to this headquarters not later than 15 of every month in the time with the new rate. For necessary action, please acknowledge receipts. Meanwhile, more soldiers in northeast Nigeria and other threat of operation have appealed to the Chief of Army Staff for voluntary retirement. The action comes armed security challenges the military is currently combating in most parts of the country. Meanwhile, the soldiers drawn from various formations of the army across the country are all junior cadres who are mostly fighting against terrorists and insurgents. The Chief of Army Staff has since approved their former disengagement. Reference a convert the Chief of Army Staff approval for the voluntary medical discharge of the above named senior corps and 18 others listed at the Annex A. The soldiers are to proceed on terminal leave by 15th June 2024. Okay, while other disengagement date take place from 15th February, that is 2024, in accordance with the Nigeria Army administrative policies and the procedures revised. Alright, on this one, according to the report, the letter said that is directed to request formation and its units to release all affected soldiers to report at the headquarters garrison with their unit service document for documentation. All forms of military control items, arms, ammunition, and items of combat kits are recovered from the soldiers. Meanwhile, the list of existing soldiers numbered 19 did not distinguish between those embarking on voluntary retirement and those leaving the army on medical grounds. Unto this, none of them had attained retirement age or the military years of service. In the last 12 months, over 1,000 soldiers in northern Nigeria and other threats of operation have resigned from the Nigerian army. Some of the affected soldiers who spoke to some reporters had cited loss of interest, intimidation by superiors, corruption in the army, and low morale as their reason for their actions. There have been allegations of corruption in Nigerian army which some of the soldiers have blamed on their loss of interest. According to them, the army is the epitome of deep-seated corruption. They noted that corruption is affecting the fight against the anti-terrorism war in the northern east. To stop such a move, army authorities in December 2022 had cited loss of interest and low morale as reason for the disengagement by soldiers would no longer be accepted as the basis for approval of voluntary retirement. Immediate Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahaya, in a signal, had said service personnel discharging as will does not argue well for the Nigerian army. Alright, my fellow Nigerians, you see how it is now. Nigerian army voluntarily resigning. What more are we going to say? In fact, when the center once the center split, the center will not hold again. The signal had read that the military service in Nigeria is a voluntary service. Okay, accordingly, able-bodied men and women apply to join to serve the color, after which they apply for re-engagement or choose to voluntarily discharge. Others in the course of service decide to go on retirement or discharge before the run out date. Admittedly, service in the Nigerian army is voluntary, and since it is not a conscript army, any personnel could opt to leave at different times. Conversely, considering the resources and effort that leave being put into training most of the applicant, which requires that skills and expertise acquired in utilized for the benefit of the people and for the benefit of the system, opting out without serving the length prescribed in the color in amicable to the system. Also, in order to ensure the SSCs required is not easy left off by the service, and to recoup the investment made to the benefit of the nation. Service personnel discharging at will does not argue well for the Nigerian army. My fellow country people, this reason is to say the least lamb and therefore not accepted personnel are expected to explain the reason behind lack of interest. Example, I do not want to fight for the country again. I have not been promoted and so many other things. These are coming from the personnel. To enable the service make necessary amendment for the betterment of the system. Accordingly, other cognate reasons could be made for discharging from service, otherwise such request would not be granted. Okay, my fellow country people, I would like you to follow more, try to comment, take your take, and then remember to subscribe so we're getting more updates coming right from this channel. Thank you and God bless.